What was she like?
She was magical. You know, there are people that when they walk in the room, they kind of glow. Betty, you glow. You glow too. Betty had this aura about her of just pure grace and kindness and humor. She was just, I was so lucky. I got to work with her for 5 years.
When Hot in Cleveland premiered on TV Land in 2010, it brought together 4 women from different corners of television history: Valerie Bertinelli, Jane Leeves, Wendie Malick, and the incomparable Betty White. For Bertinelli, who was already beloved from her One Day at a Time years, the sitcom offered more than just a career revival. It became a place of healing, laughter, and unexpected lessons about confidence and friendship. But behind the effortless on-screen chemistry, Bertinelli carried a private battle with self-doubt, one that her time alongside Betty White helped her finally confront. Now, reflecting on their time together, Bertinelli is opening up about the truth of their friendship. A friendship that changed everything. For Valerie Bertinelli, stepping onto the Hot in Cleveland set wasn't just another acting job, it was a second chance. After years away from sitcom television, she found herself surrounded by 3 women whose comedic instincts were razor sharp and whose life experience added richness to every scene. Among them, none shined brighter than Betty White. Bertinelli has spoken often about her admiration for White, but what she reveals now is her co-star did far more than make her laugh between takes. Quote, "She was just so comfortable in her own skin," she told Today. "Watching her made me want to stop hiding behind my insecurities." That simple truth resonated deeply for Bertinelli, who has been open about her lifelong struggles with body image and self-worth. Working beside a woman who embodied confidence and warmth without pretense inspired her to start viewing herself through a kinder lens. "I would see Betty on set cracking jokes and completely unfazed by the little things that used to tie me up in knots," she reflected. "It was like watching freedom in motion." Over time, Bertinelli found herself absorbing lessons that went far beyond acting. She learned to loosen her grip on perfection, to laugh more freely, and to take pride in simply showing up as she was. Betty White, with her signature wit and timeless charm, reminded her that joy isn't something you chase, it's something you allow. Learning to let go. Bertinelli has described Hot in Cleveland as one of the most affirming experiences of her career, but it didn't start that way. In a candid conversation with Showbiz Cheat Sheet, she admitted that when she first joined the series, she carried a heavy load of self-doubt. Quote, "All my insecurities were brought out during Hot in Cleveland," she confessed, "because you're in front of cameras every day and you have to look a certain way. I was constantly worried about how I appeared." For years, Valerie had measured herself against impossible standards, the kind that come from growing up in Hollywood. But something began to shift as she watched how Betty White approached her work. White didn't seem concerned with image or ego. She cared about connection, timing, and joy. She was proof that talent and kindness could coexist, and that age didn't diminish relevance. Slowly, Bertinelli began letting go. "I stopped obsessing about how I looked on camera and started focusing on how much fun we were having," she said later. "Once I did that, everything felt lighter." That transformation didn't happen overnight, but her friendship with White provided the example she needed. Behind the scenes, Betty's humor acted as a kind of medicine. She had a knack for breaking tension with a single line or reminding everyone that television, at its best, should make people happy, including the people who create it. For Bertinelli, who had spent so long in a cycle of self-criticism, that reminder was liberating. The heart of Hot in Cleveland. At its core, Hot in Cleveland wasn't just a sitcom about 4 women who accidentally start new lives in the Midwest. It was a celebration of female friendship, the kind that endures through laughter, loss, and the occasional glass of wine. The cast's chemistry was undeniable, but their off-screen bond was equally powerful. According to Screen Rant, the connection among the 4 actresses extended beyond the scripts. They were incredibly supportive of each other. One crew member recalled, "It felt like a family on set." Bertinelli in particular often referred to her co-stars as her sisters. Their backstage camaraderie spilled into every episode, giving the show a warmth that viewers could feel. For her, the laughter wasn't part of the job, it was healing. She has said that some of her favorite memories from filming weren't in front of an audience, but during the quiet moments before a scene began, when Betty White would whisper a joke that left everyone in stitches. "She had this twinkle in her eye," Bertinelli said. "You never knew what was coming, but you knew it would make your day better." Working on Hot in Cleveland became more than a professional milestone. It was a turning point, a place where Bertinelli finally learned to silence the harsh inner voice that had followed her since her teenage years. Surrounded by women who lifted her up, she found herself stepping into a new kind of confidence, one rooted in friendship, gratitude, and joy. Betty's quiet wisdom. Valerie has said that one of the most surprising things about Betty White was her calmness, a kind of ease that radiated from her even in chaos. While the rest of the cast might have been running lines or fussing over wardrobe details, Betty would stroll onto the set with a serene smile and a sharp quip at the ready. That attitude wasn't just endearing, it was instructive. She never complained, never made it about herself, Bertinelli said. If something went wrong, she'd just laugh and say, well, that's showbiz. It reminded me that we don't have to take everything so seriously. That perspective became something of a guiding principle for Bertinelli as the seasons went on. She began to adopt a lighter touch with her work, her self-image, and even her expectations of life. Watching Betty, she realized that confidence didn't come from perfection, it came from acceptance. The older actress embodied the kind of grace that only comes from having lived fully and loved deeply. And perhaps that was the greatest gift she gave her co-star, the permission to breathe, to laugh, to forgive herself, and to just be. Betty White didn't need to lecture anyone on wisdom, she simply lived it, and the people around her couldn't help but absorb it. Growth beyond the spotlight. When Hot in Cleveland ended in 2015 after 6 successful seasons, Bertinelli found herself looking back on the experience with gratitude. It wasn't just another show on her resume, it was a chapter of transformation. She had come into the project still questioning her worth, still battling insecurities that fame couldn't fix. But she left with something stronger, self-compassion. Betty taught me that joy is a choice, Bertinelli later said in a reflective interview. Even on the hard days, you can find a reason to smile, and that's how you keep going. That insight carried her through some of her toughest personal seasons in the years that followed. As she navigated loss, public scrutiny, and self-discovery, she often drew on the lessons she'd learned from her time on the Hot in Cleveland set. It wasn't about image anymore, it was about truth. About learning to celebrate herself for who she really was. Her friendship with Betty White remained a touchstone long after the cameras stopped rolling. When Betty passed away in 2021, just shy of her 100th birthday, Bertinelli was among the many who shared heartfelt tributes. She spoke not only of Betty's humor, but of her kindness, the kind that never sought attention, but changed lives nonetheless. The legacy that lingers. In the years since, Bertinelli has continued to speak openly about self-expectance and emotional growth, both in interviews and through her memoirs. She credits her time on Hot in Cleveland, and especially her friendship with Betty White, as a turning point in her understanding of what it means to be comfortable in one's own skin. Quote, "She made me see that aging isn't something to fear," Bertinelli shared. "It's something to embrace, because it means you're still here, still learning, still laughing." That idea has shaped Bertinelli's outlook on both her career and her personal life. She no longer chases the approval of others the way she once did. Instead, she focuses on authenticity, on showing up for herself the way her co-star always showed up for everyone else. As she reflects on her time in Cleveland, Bertinelli's words carry a kind of quiet gratitude. She doesn't romanticize the past, but she honors it. Every moment of laughter, every pang of doubt, every lesson in resilience. In her heart, Betty White's influence lives on, not just as a memory of a beloved co-star, but as a reminder that true beauty lies in grace, kindness, and the courage to be real. Even years later, Bertinelli says she tries to bring lightness to her daily life. "If Betty could find joy in everything, so can I," she once said. That's what she left me, the reminder that happiness is a choice we can keep making. Now it's time to hear from you. What's your favorite memory or moment of Betty White that still makes you smile today? Let us know in the comments section below.